Hi guys, Douglas Gibson here, founder and CEO of Infigo. I'm very excited to be joined by Andrew Boyd, the president of Blue Labels. And we're just going to have a little chat today. We're here at LabelExpo, and we're looking just to have a catch up and see how things are going. We met, had a great couple of days a few months back, and we came over to Columbus. So how are things?
Things are good. I think things are good. The label market is returning to normal after a few very disruptive years in the pandemic. Big ups, not as big downs, but just some slower years. But I think we're seeing demand get to regular speed. I feel like even at LabelExpo, the purchasing activity is kind of returning. To
I'm just like I was coming by just a moment ago. People are queuing in to come and see different setups and machinery. So it's exciting.
I think it feels like the label industry that we've known, though I think on average the label industry grows about 4% a year. So 4% isn't quite as exciting as 20% that we were seeing in 2021, 2022. So we're getting used to the norm.
But stable.
Stable.
Yeah, which is key in business.
For sure.
As exciting as the highs, the lows kill us as well. So what are the challenges? One of the big things that we discussed when we last met was around people and bringing new people in. How are you finding people in the industry at the moment, bringing new talent in?
I think with we're talking about demand normalizing, I think there's also the labor market's kind of getting back to normal as well. So that's been really nice to be back in a place where you're getting a lot of applicants, you're getting even a few good applicants for every position.
Yeah, definitely.
And you have good options, and people are interested in sticking around for a career. It's that you don't kind of see the job hopping that you were really seeing in 2021 and 2022.
Nice.
In that crazy, you just couldn't find enough people time. So I think it's a stabilization moment, but overall the labor market's getting back to normal. You may have heard in the U.S. we have a pretty disruptive...
We've got a lot going on.
Yeah, exactly. We've got tariffs to deal with, and of course that's created havoc for many other economies as well. So a new set of supply chain problems. I think overall that a lot of the supply chain is handling this in a lot more measured fashion. I've seen people very reluctant to pass through costs to end customers. We've seen our vendors doing a great job of communicating what's happening, giving people a heads up, and trying to really figure out ways to get through this together. I think due to the nature of this kind of being foisted upon many of us,
absolutely,
that there's a lot more cooperation between all the parts of the supply chain to pass these costs along and not have any part of the supply chain be stuck.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what little tidbits for the guys out there and things of like, what would be your thing to recommend, one of the challenges you maybe overcome or something? What would you be saying to the guys that will be joining in us on this podcast? What would be the thing that they're either inspiring to become into labels or they're looking for inspiration of what to do next? Have you got some little bit of glimmers of magic that you'd be happy to share?
Yeah, the glimmer of magic is, and we talk about this a lot at Blue Label, that success doesn't always, you can't see success immediately. And so keep doing the right things, keep automating your processes, keep looking for opportunities where there's waste or excessive non-value-added activities happening, extra clicks, transposing data. Look at your production processes for non-value-added time and waste. Is this really delivering something that customers need? Is this overkill? Was this a process put in place for one particular customer and the other 99% of people don't need it? And just keep focusing on that, because eventually, if you're delivering that value to customers, they come and they'll find you. And I think the frustrating part, and it's taken me a long time to understand, is just because you're doing the right thing today doesn't mean you're going to see results today.
No, absolutely.
And especially over the past few years, you felt like, is all this process improvement leading anywhere?
Yeah.
And then as customers come back and as you see volume rise, you can kind of find, we're able to deal with many more orders and not have to add capacity like we might have had to 5 years ago.
And how are you seeing that from a SKU perspective? Are you from a pricing? Are you seeing more jobs, lower orders, lower value orders, or is there still a good balance of jobs and value? How's that sort of change?
Yeah. So we track monetary value per SKU every year.
Yeah.
We saw it growing for probably the last 5 years, where actually people are printing slightly fewer SKUs because of, again, I say distribution chain consolidation, where people had to sell either online or in store shelves. Due to the pandemic, small mom and pop shops weren't really doing as well. So you actually saw the trend that has been going on for years, recombining. I think now you're starting to see a proliferation of small brands, really Instagram-driven brands. People are curious to try some new, definitely in the health field. There's a lot of, in the Make America Healthy Again world of America, there's supplements are doing great. I think there's a lot of cannabis beverage in the U.S. It's really taking off. So we're starting to see all sorts of new products. What we're not seeing is traditional brands diversifying into multi-SKU. We're seeing new launches moving into new SKUs. So,
and I think is the technology, both from an online perspective, obviously Infigo drives online, but from a digital perspective and a finishing, you guys are just getting leaner in terms of being able to turn that around much quicker?
Absolutely. We have some really exciting projects, one of which is integration with ABG Connect, which is essentially allows our data system, which is CERM, to go directly to the press and send job after job after job without having to manually set anything up. So for tiny jobs, this is huge. And we had a pretty good idea of the value this might create. I don't think what we couldn't have possibly expected was northwards of 20% savings, so purely on finishing.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So I think if you take that mindset to printing, if you take that mindset to how you might rewind and package jobs, there's a ton of value out of it.
Very nice.
Not to mention how you're consolidating jobs, your e-commerce platform, your order portal, which for us is Infigo, and your ability to really, I would say, group that effort into processing, value-added processing, not email back and forth 27 times for one order. It's like, how can the customer self-serve and get something into the system?
Yeah, excellent. So when we last caught up, you were just in the process of ironing out all the kinks of bringing Infigo and CERM and hybrid and ABG and all those things together. So that's quite a monumental piece of engineering, both internally and for all the different partners. Tell me a little bit about how that sort of process, the good and the bad.
One of my mentors once told me that full automation is a lights out facility, if you will, of someone who enters an order online, it travels right through the system, artwork's processed, it becomes a live job, job is printed in the box, no human being ever touches it. That's the dream. And I think it's good to have an envisioned future state you want. But the reality is, any progress you make in those activities is creating value for your customers, creating value for yourself, and ultimately pushing the envelope forward. So I think it's, what is it? Perfect is the enemy of good. I believe is a saying, and that's so true when it comes to automation, which is find opportunities to eliminate small tasks and then get to the more difficult stuff next. So I think for us, first step is getting an e-commerce platform that works well for a select number of products. And once we're able to do that and get it to a point of user experience being easy to use, what the customer is used to in 2025, we're seeing a lot of great resonance. So next step is, we have a great self-service portal, but we've realized our customers' work is a lot more complex than we would have thought.
Absolutely.
So how can you get to a point where someone with multi-sites or someone with maybe hundreds and hundreds of SKUs, some of which are end of life, some of which are not, how can they use it and still be easier for them than having, kind of a concierge on the other side?
It's an interesting point because we get asked a lot at the moment, web to print's not for us, or I don't want to go online because I don't have the right customer. How would you answer? I find that a little bit interesting that you don't have the right customer that would want to purchase online because the world is moving that way. What are your sentiments?
Even for the same products, like when we think about how we order food, when we think about how we, pay bills, when we think about how we might even buy a car. Even the same customer might buy something online and then buy it in person the next time. So I think being able to meet somebody where they are, or meet a customer where they are in their shopping experience, or if they've got a sick kid at home, if they're just trying to knock out a bunch of errands in a row, they might want to go online. Next time around, they're killing time or they want to ask some follow-up questions, they might want to call in and talk to a human being. I think that every customer is an online customer, at least some of the time. And so why would you not have a channel to speak to them when they're in that mindset? And so I think forcing them into analog at all times is, what if they just wanted to place a reprint order, Or like it's the end of the week, they have a deadline to meet, they've just got to check this off, off their list. And so I think that's what Infigo can deliver to us is, we've got a great solution of, if that's your mode of communication all the time, or it's just this week, we've got something for you.
So the conversation I've been having with these guys is we're not trying to take everything away and that communication with the customer. What we're trying to do is take those difficult parts of that process, uploading a file, pre-flight and checking those sorts of things, and getting those things that can be captured quite easily and quite quickly, but still giving you more time almost to have that better conversation with the customer. What's going on? How are your jobs going through? Have you got new business plans and that sort of stuff?
Absolutely. I think it's a supplement to customer service, right? And I think it allows the human beings to do human being work, which is manage relationships, steer you through complex builds or new products or questions you might have about packaging. What it gets rid of is order entry. What it gets rid of is product building and really the monotonous data transcription part of ordering packaging. So when those two things are working well, I think what it'll allow, CSR in our case, the account manager to do is interact with far more people in a meaningful way.
Takers.
Rather than get disrupted as they have to do small tasks to put the orders in. Yeah. So that's our goal. I think we've made great progress, but 2% of the path, 3% of the way to the 100% path is certainly better than zero. And one of my favorite quotes to this day is always, the best time to plant a tree was 5 years ago. The second best time is now. So it's like, if you feel like you're late to the e-commerce world, I think what we've learned is you're gonna have to start building it at some point. Now is probably the time.
So there's never not a good time.
Absolutely.
To look at Infigo, obviously. So one of the things that we're working on, and the world is full of AI. We are internally, Infigo has done an incredible amount of work to make ourselves more efficient with AI. Are you guys? How is that? Is that on the roadmap? Is that in the future? Are there cool things that you guys have been able to do from a process perspective, or how is AI impacting you guys?
I think so many business owners, we know AI is going to be an important part of who we are in the future, and a lot of what we're talking about with these tasks that are either repetitive or data transcription, or even sorting through our own systems for data we already have. Super helpful with that. I think we're seeing it as agents a lot already. There will probably, sometime soon there will probably be a Blue Label agent that's helpful for pulling invoices, for helping you manage your SKUs or those sort of things. The next step will really be when it can help you to decide on what your packaging needs are as a customer. And then for us even internally, to kind of route that into a proper channel and answer a lot of the questions that we're gonna have to go through.
So maybe almost like an advice tool of, you looked at these labels, we found these sorts of ideas work well in your market, or trying a new product, or nice.
Precisely. And as people who produce a lot of packaging, it's like there's a lot of data to learn from. So right now, we have a long way to go before that tool exists of how do you access all that data and provide it in a useful way to customers and even yourselves, of being able to pull from your good experiences, being able to learn that, this project or this build is really not what you should be using. So I think there's a lot of exciting stuff there. One area I'm very interested in is using AI to essentially analyze processes. I sat in a seminar about, basically, it's a software, so it's learning on status changes to see how people progress through status changes, where time is spent, where they skip steps, and it will build you a process map. It'll show you what steps maybe should be eliminated or are not being adhered to properly, and give you details on that. So I think the idea of using AI to even tell you where you should be using AI, it's interesting.
No, absolutely.
But that's, I think for people with small businesses, the ideas of what it can make possible and the resources it can give us are overwhelming. Picking something small to start with is the way.
I think it's quite exciting for us because we've got a couple of new projects, and we're going to take a completely different approach on how we're going to scale the project by using a mixture. Because I think one of the challenges that certainly we've found, you give the time, the energy, the team, the time, and the energy can just be spent procrastinating. So it's taking a bit like automation, really. There's no point in automating it if it's not going to help the business. So, no, that's really interesting. Well, thank you very much, Andrew. It's been great to talk with you. Just before we close out, what I'd like to do is just, if you can just give a little bit of experience of how you found Infigo and your recommendations of working with us as a partner.
I think at Blue Label, what we look for are kind of partners for life, you know, in our way of thinking about this. But really, we try to pick a small, we print with HP, we finish with ABG, we use CERM for our MIS. But my philosophy is if we can build deep relationships with our partners, they're going to understand our requirements. We can also learn from them of, do we really need this solution? And I think we've definitely found that with Infigo of the project of a true link into an MIS was far more extensive than we both could have imagined.
Yeah,
but what we ended up with was also a tool far more powerful than we probably initially thought. And I think that only came from two parties that were willing to listen and repeatedly go back to the drawing board and overcome difficulties. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, you don't always see the results of what you're working on day to day. And with any automation project, there are frustrating moments of this isn't going to play out the way we thought. But if you stick with it, you really do end up on the other side with a tool that's like, wow, now we have a live, basically web call into our MIS to get real pricing data up to date to show you the status of orders as it's actually inside of the system, which, you know, for CERM was a big first. So that's been super exciting. But would totally recommend Infigo, again, just because of their ability to listen and kind of figure out where you are and where you want to go.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the rest of LabelExpo, and I look forward to our next catch-up.
Absolutely.